got it. So I guess while we're perfect. So have you guys seen the monitors here at the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association? Okay, so when we're done, or if you guys are stopping along the trail on another day when it's not nighttime, if you look at the building as you're passing, you'll see a little purple air monitor and also a sign. And so we'll be talking about those, but there's one monitor there and then also a monitor on the rapid flashing beacon along right across from Palm. So you can look for those, but we're going to be talking about the Community Air Quality Monitoring Project. And my name is Lizzie Eric. I am a planner for Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization. I've been working on this project for, I think we've been doing it for a little over a year at this point. And I've been working with Young Hong, and I'll let Young Hong introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Yong Hong Lo. I'm from the College of Public Health, University of South Florida. I'm a doctoral student, and I work as a fellow for Transportation Planning Organization and with SPIZI for more than 1 year. Yeah, so it's my honor to be here to introduce our project.
Perfect. All right, and next slide. All right, so what we'll do initially is just kind of make sure that we're all on the same page. So we'll kind of give some background information and then dive into the project description. So air pollution basically just refers to the contaminants that are in the air that are harmful to people, plants, animals, and the environment. And then air quality is basically just a description of how much pollution is in the air. So pretty basic terms just to start off with. Hello. And next slide. Thank you. So there are a lot of different sources of pollution, but we will specifically be focusing on the surface traffic related air pollution. And if you can hit the arrow. So TRAP, you'll hear that term a lot throughout the presentation, and you can, yeah. So another thing that we'll be referencing throughout the presentation are the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or NAQS. So these are national regulatory standards set by the US EPA, and they are for 6 different principal pollutants, which can be detrimental to public health and also the environment. So we've got carbon monoxide, lead, nitrogen dioxide, ozone, particulate matter, and also sulfur dioxide. Another term, or another chart that we've got on here, is the Air Quality Index, or AQI. This is also set by the EPA, but it's basically just a ranking of the pollution levels based on the health effects and also who is affected. So you can see here we've got, it goes good, moderate, unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, very healthy, and hazardous. So it's different rankings, but just to connect these two charts. So if you see an AQI that's over 100, then it has exceeded the short-term NAQS levels, which is for particulate matter would be 35 micrograms per meter cubed for a 24-hour period. And Yong Hong will be going into a little bit more detail about that later on. So as I mentioned, these pollutants and standards are set based on the relationship between air quality and health. So everyone is affected by poor air quality. However, some people are more affected than others or are more at risk. For example, women who are pregnant, people who have heart or lung disease, people who are being active outside, also seniors, children, and infants as well. And people who are exposed to poor air quality and more vulnerable populations, they do have increased risks of aggravated asthma, premature death among people with heart and lung disease, as well as infants, and then also increased rates of non-fatal heart attacks or strokes, as well as respiratory illnesses. So what we didn't see on that graphic, however, were people who are more at risk because of their level of exposure, because they live, learn, or work or learn near sources of trap. So studies indicate that people of color and lower income households are more, they do bear a higher burden of exposure to trap, including studies that specifically have focused on Hillsborough County. For example, research that's been done by Dr. Amy Stewart. She's a professor at USF, and she's also working on this project. She works with Yonghong very closely, and also the Hillsborough TPO State of the System report has also looked into that. Next slide. So how do we know what the level of exposure is and what our air quality is like? There are a couple different ways that you can measure air pollution and monitor air quality. Some of it is air modeling. Some of it is looking at satellite data and also sampling pollutants. The most accurate and reliable is going to be the regulatory monitors. So those are in Hillsborough County, they're operated by the Environmental Protection Commission, and those measure the pollutants to determine whether or not we're meeting the NAAQS standards. They are very accurate, very reliable. However, they are very expensive, and they take up a lot of space. And also, they give us a general understanding of the air quality in the county. So not necessarily localized, but very general view. And also, we do recognize that sometimes there is a lack of trust in government data. So that is another factor for that. Another way that's a newer method of monitoring and measuring air pollution are smaller, lower cost monitors. These are an emerging technology. There's a lot of research currently being done to test these monitors and the data. And we're actually seeing them deployed a lot in communities and with community air monitoring networks. So they give us more of a localized view of the air quality. Thank you. And that kind of brings us to our project that we're doing, the community air monitoring, air quality monitoring project. So the TPO and also USF and EPC, we've been working with the community to study air quality in underserved communities that are most impacted by trap, and also share that data with the community using low-cost air quality monitors. So the idea for this project kind of came out of a TPO technical advisory committee meeting where there was a presentation by Dr. Amy Stewart, and the EPC representative kind of came up with the general idea of this. We've also heard a lot of concern from residents about the air quality near interstates. So based on all of that, we applied for and received a grant from Federal Highway to start a pilot study. And so that's what we're talking to you about today. That pilot study has established pilot community monitoring sites in communities. We've been testing and analyzing the monitors and the data and really engaging the community in that and sharing and getting out that data with the overall idea of establishing a community monitoring network. And that all really works towards these longer term goals of building community capacity around air monitoring, and informing future transportation planning, and also equitably improving air monitoring. So with that, I will hand it over to Yonghong to talk about the monitor selection.
So I'll keep talking about how we select the low cost monitors for the community use. So basically, the method we used here is to through the literature and government literature review, a report review, and also the pilot setup and field setting. And we developed a criteria for monitor selection for community pilot deployment that is showing in this table. So firstly, we focus on the traffic related air pollutants. That is our first focus on the particulate matter 2.5 and the nitrogen dioxide, and with a secondary focus on the VOC organic compounds. And then we hold hope the price is affordable for the individuals and the community use. And the monitor size would be better if it is small and footprint. And we hope that is easy to use with with fewer accessories and no maintenance. And also we hope that would have an easy data transfer and also a data public sharing website that everyone can see it. And so and the last one, that the criteria is we hope that the data, the monitoring data would be as good as possible. So based on the criteria we developed on the previous slide, we identified these 7 low-cost monitors that can be affordable and easy use for the communities. And I'm not going to the details of this table, but if you like interested in some of them and would like to install somewhere, and you can just reach out to me after the meeting. So the next thing we did is test the candidate monitors performance. We followed the US EPA guidelines for the particulate matter 2.5 and test this monitors data completeness, accuracy, and precision. So generally, these 2 graphs here shows the results of our testing. And the first graph shows here is the data completeness and accuracy. And the data completeness is the how consistently the monitors measure usable values. So we can see from the first graph that like the gray dot here, it means the flow two. This is one of our monitors. They lost some of the data. You can see this dot not very consistent. So it means they lost some of the data. And the flow this animal to another monitor. And this purple in here, it also shows they lost some of the data. Except these 2 monitors, there's another two like the super air and polarity. They perform good for this data completeness. Another one is the accuracy. So accuracy of is how close the measured value to the true values. So here we viewed this regulatory monitor. Here the blue dots here means that the true value, we use it as its true value. If like the other color dots are much closer to this blue dot, it means this light is more accurate. So this graph shows the precision results, and the precision is how resolve this measurement. So if these 3 dots, you can see this blue, yellow, and this orange. These 3 dots, they are more overlapping. That means these devices is more compact. So what we can get from this slide, is generally we think that the measurements follow the reference variation, but they have the large range here. So considering the entire period of the testing and our list raw data of particulate matter 2.5 from the purple air and also the animal tube imaging data, but the performance good compared with the other monitors. And the flow one, the data from the flow 2 showed I don't think that is accurate of these devices. So based on this, we think that calibration, these devices is a kind of way we need to do to improve the accuracy of the monitoring data. And it is necessary to do this calibration because because this technology of these low-cost monitors is different from the regulatory monitors. Additionally, like the meteorological condition, the temperature, relative humidity, and other factors will influence the results of the monitor's data. So this slide, it's a little like complicated. It's just to show the results, the calibration model we used to make the monitoring data more accurate. So this is the kind of way we used. I'm not going to the details of this one. So based on this calibration we used here, we found that after calibrated, the monitoring can be proved to moderate to good performance. So this is good. So this slide shows the NO2's results. And we we calculated the 1 hour average NO2 concentration to because this level has the national criteria to access. So NO2, this air pollutant, is much harder to measure. It can be influenced by many factors like the relative humidity, temperature, and other air pollutants like the ozone. These factors can influence the performance of NO2 monitors. So our previous results show that NO2 monitors have weak to no correlation to the regulatory monitors. And the clarity of these devices here, the clarity performs best compared with the other monitors, but it still, the data, even the calibrated data shows no performance values. So we think that there's a need to find another calibration way, or maybe we can find another monitors to measure the NO2. So I'll pass this to Lizzie to talk about the community collaboration and engagement.
Do you mind hitting the next slide? Thank you. So the community collaboration and engagement component of this is really important because, quite honestly, without it, the community sites wouldn't exist. And so we also really want the residents to understand the project and be involved in it and understand the how air pollution is monitored and what the data is really telling us. So to get to the community monitoring sites, there was a collaborative multi-step process that we went through, and Lena was heavily involved in that throughout the last year. So we kind of have all of the different major phases that we went through to get to that. The first one was the community selection criteria. So we basically developed a criteria to identify which communities to monitor. That was based on demographic and environmental factors from the EPA's EJ screen tool, as well as the TPO's non-discrimination and equity plan. And then also opportunities for engagement. And then the site selection criteria to identify the types of sites. And then we held a focus group with community organizations and local agencies to identify the sites, come up with suggestions, and give us feedback on those criteria. And then we went through the approval and agreement process as well, did field visits, and finally the installations. And we ended up with our community air monitoring pilot sites. So we have 4 sites right now that are established, and we have 3 that are coming in the winter. We ended up needing to do a little bit more calibration on the front end of those. So that took a little bit longer to get the 3 up in the winter. But some of the sites have purple air monitors, which measure particulate matter. And then some have clarity monitors that measure NO2 or nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter. Some of them have both. Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association happens to have the 2 types of monitors. So next slide. And these are just a couple photos of different engagement things that we've done throughout the course of the year. You can actually see Young Hong up here, and she's participating in the Flip Junior program that we had here with the kids. And then also you see the site, the signage that we developed, and that gives a little bit of background information as well as a QR code to the project website. And so that project website is how people can access the data. So you can click on a link that will take you to the purple air or the clarity map, and you can further get information from there. And at this point, Yang Hong will give us a look at the community site data.
Next slide, yeah. So access the community site data is provided by these 2 maps. One is a purple air map, one is a clarity map. So on these maps, anyone can explore air quality levels over time at each of the sites. So, and also download the data you want to know and for further analysis. We will developing the material and the educational activities to teach community members to learn how to interpreting this data, and very helpful tools that can help us to understand the air quality data is showing here. One is the US EPA air quality index that shows the air quality data from a health perspective way, and on the EPA's AQI website. Another website is very helpful for us to understand the general basic terms of air pollution is the air data basic information website. This slide shows the 24 hours average PM 2.5 concentration trade over time. You can see that from April to August 2020 and 2022, and at each site, the Newmont Zion Seminole Elementary School, Tampa Heights Junior Civilization, and Saunders Libraries at each site trained. And there are three important values that help us to understand this data. One is the 5 microgram per meter cube. 5 microgram per meter cube means the background level of particulate matter. It also means the air is clean. And another value is 12 microgram per meter cube. So 12 microgram per meter cube is the annual lactose level. It's designed to be protective of health for a long-term exposure. So, the third one is the daily lactose level of 35 microgram per meter cube. So this level is designed to generally protective of health, daily health. So based on these three different values, we can see from this graph that 24 hours average values are all below 35. 35 didn't show here, but we can see that all this data is below 35 microgram per meter cube. This means there is no regulatory concern. So they don't consider this value because their level is 35 microgram per meter cube. However, there's evidence showing in the literature that there are detrimental health effects, even the values, the concentration, PM 2.5 concentration values is lower than the lactose values, this 35 microgram per meter cube for some populations. And we can also see that many days, some days like this, here, some days that the average concentration exceed the typical background level, that is 5 microgram per meter cube, and some spikes and can reach to 20 microgram per meter cube. Yeah. You're saying that Mexico is much lower. Yes. Yes, there's a little. For long-term exposure, health effective level is 12 microgram per meter cube. Yeah. Yeah, EPA's criteria for this like regulatory concern is 35 microgram per meter cube. Yeah. Yes. And long. So the measurement is for 24 hours. I am not sure about the specific that should be the 24 hours consistently exposure. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at this specific data we collected thus far at the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association. So one analysis that can help us to understand how concentration vary over time is look at the average concentration over the day. So the axis means the hours from the 0 to 24. And this slide shows the diurnal circle of particulate matter at the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association. The blue line showing here. So in the graph indicates the average value throughout the day. And the highest value, please click the highest value then appears typically as the 7, you can see as the 7 a.m. and in the afternoon, later in the afternoon. So we think that maybe because the traffic hours time and the maximum value you can see here, this dot is the maximum value. This maximum value at each hour are larger than the EP. And this slide, we can also see the average value for each day of the whole week. And this weekly circle plots at the Tampa Heights site, this shows that the highest PM2.5 concentration during the week are generally measured at Thursday. Yeah, I will just pass this to Lizzie to talk about what are the next step we need to do.
So what we'll be focusing on coming up is really increasing the amount of community engagement and empowerment. And we'll be doing that through developing training. We'll also be doing additional presentations and outreach and information booths. We've got a couple events that we'll be doing here that are coming up that we're really excited about. And then we'll also be continuing to test the monitors and evaluate them and the data. And also developing the data calibration methods that Yonghong was talking about specifically for the nitrogen dioxide monitors. Another really exciting thing that I wanted to let you all know about is that we did receive the EPA grant for air quality monitoring. So we'll be working even closer together and we'll be continuing this project and developing a network. So that'll be very exciting. Yeah, so the parks, we've got 3 parks that will have the monitors in the winter, and that was part of the initial funding. And those will be at Perry Harvey Park, at Sulphur Springs Park, and also at Robles Park. And then we'll be figuring out additional sites where we want to monitor as we expand it. So that's the end of our presentation. We really appreciate you guys having us out, and thank you so much for your time. If you guys do have questions, definitely let us know. And you can follow the QR code or the link there. And Brian, if you want to send out the presentation, please do. So that's a great question. So I think, so part of the project is, it is a little bit of a longer term project. So right now we're kind of in the process of getting data and figuring out, are there hotspots? Are there areas where we see more concentrations? And if so, what's kind of the surrounding area like? And how would we kind of develop the solutions for that? So a lot of what the solutions will be site specific, because it is so like we're trying to get more of a localized perspective so that we can come up with more localized solutions. Because I mean, it could be the wind direction has an effect on it, right? So, so there, right now we're kind of in the process where we're collecting the data, and that will then allow us to make more effective and informed decisions. But what's really exciting is that since the community is involved at this stage, then you all have an opportunity to evaluate the data with us and to look at what are the potential solutions for this, and really look at what are the hot spots, or call to our attention, because we want the community to be involved in the data monitoring and really look at that and understand that data. Yeah. Yeah, so there are a lot of different solutions specifically related to transportation. Mode shift is going to be your best solution, right? You're going to decrease the number of cars, you're going to decrease the air pollution. But some other ones that people have done is also, well, a couple of them are increasing the potentially the number of regulatory monitors to expand that. Right now there are 11. You could increase that potentially, or also there are different solutions that you can do to kind of distance people from the sources of the pollution. So whether that's putting, and I don't know, but potentially putting like regulations on how far a school could be, or how far a neighborhood could be, or what have you, or if you put barriers up. So you could put noise walls and or vegetation between you and the source of the pollution. So there are a lot of different opportunities, but again, it's kind of looking at that localized, what's actually happening right in that area and what's your surrounding environment like, so that you find the best solution. We have not, but that is a really good question. We are working off of grants right now, so those are very specific. But yeah, that's a great question. And if you want to add anything. Mhm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah. You have anything? All right. Thank you all so much. I don't know if I
You just said it. Thank you, Lizzie and Young Hung. That was very helpful information. We'll certainly follow up. And in particular, as I think the interstate construction moves closer to the monitoring point here, we'll be interested how that affects things. I was just looking at the map to see, as sort of the I-275 expansion projects aren't too close to where the monitors are right now, it seems. And so, not only the ongoing, traffic and particulate matter that we get from that, but we've had some concerns, and some neighbors have had concerns with just how much dust and debris is generated from the interstate project. So I'll be interested in a few months when that makes its way here. You want me to stand there, or do you want to move that? Because I'm gonna. Okay. All right. Did want to touch on our overlay code amendment really briefly. That's something that we've been tracking each month and working on. I wanted to give everyone an update. So on October 19th, we held a special forum here. This overlay is something we've been working on off and on for 3 years, but really deeply for the last year and a half. and is working its way through the City and Planning Commission. So we were supposed to have had a Planning Commission presentation and vote on this a week and a half ago. However, we've delayed it to January 9th because we wanted to make some edits based on some additional feedback we got in October. And the Planning Commission told us that they needed 30 days to review it. So we did not have it ready in that amount of time. And so we've had to delay it until after the holidays. The good news is that the edits that we're making and intend to make right now are minor tweaks to a few things related to parking language, the front door rule, and then trying to get some of those parking reduction incentives to apply to the historic district, because the city had initially told us we can't touch anything in the historic district, but we'd like to bring some of those benefits to this area. So we will, I'm still working on editing that document, incorporating that. And then as soon as we have that done, we'll repost it on our website for everybody to read in full detail and send it out, a notice out again via email. But the good news is the Planning Commission staff found our code overlay consistent with the comprehensive plan already. So I think the minor tweaks we're making to some parking ratios and really just massaging the language of it to make sure that our point is very clear will be well received also. And so there's a link here to our website. It's tampaites.org/overlay-district, but you can navigate there through our webpage as well. Has the full summary and details as well as a petition. So if you have not signed that petition in support of it, would very much appreciate it. We have 250 and counting neighbors that have signed that petition of support, which is great. We're just trying to, and the whole point is to create a more walkable, safer community through urban design standards. So are there any further questions on that topic? So what we had in terms of ADUs was a one-line item that says ADUs shall be permitted throughout this area. Yes, sorry, accessory dwelling unit, such as a garage apartment, a mother-in-law suite, you can call it a number of things, but essentially a additional dwelling unit that's not a part of your main house. The city's working through right now, allowing them in the central planning district, which is basically the inner core neighborhoods, not South Tampa, but the sort of inner core neighborhoods. And Matt, we only had a one-liner in that. And if, and it kind of points to, it depends on the city passing some updates to their ADU definition. And so if that doesn't pass, then our one-liner falls back on the current pretty badly worded ADU code for what it defines. Like, for instance, it would not allow a garage apartment on top of a garage because the current accessory dwelling units are limited to 15 feet in height. We think that's silly. We have historic examples of that in the neighborhood, that it's appropriate to a historic neighborhood like this. So if we just left ours as a one-liner and the city effort to revise their underlying code failed, it wouldn't do us much good because you wouldn't be allowed to build that over your garage. So we've got to be more specific with ours. No, they're proposing to make it higher. But what I'm saying is currently it's still one story short. The 9th is when our hearing is back at the Planning Commission. And that's the first step. So it goes to the Planning Commission first, has to pass there. Then it goes to City Council for adoption. So again, Planning Commission staff has already found it consistent with the comp plan, which is their job. And the appointed board usually, in my experience, follows the staff recommendation if it's all consistent. So yes. It would be effective immediately upon second reading. So yeah, normally the readings are 3 weeks apart. Is that right, Matt? Yeah. So it'd go through a first reading, which is, well, for rezonings, that's normally in the evening, and then the second reading is a morning meeting with city council. But as long as it passes the first reading, the second is usually a formality. So that could be expected in late January or maybe February. %100%. Yes. So myself and some other board members are gearing up to make our rounds through city council again. As you know, you've participated. I know there's a participator over the past year talking with city council about this. I just went and met with Chairman Joe Citro earlier this week about this. And so we've got to get back out in front of them again to remind them about what we're pursuing here. So yes, so we will send out notices for people to write to city council, write to the planning commission, state their support. Our petition signatures have been good. They've been slowly building. So that'll be helpful. But after that, it's going to be a lot of personal letters as well as people showing up to the meetings. So next, the other big topic of the night that I know some online may be tuned in for, and some may be here specifically for that, is Armature Works. So like I mentioned, Adam Harden, who is the owner of Soho Capital, which is the owner of Armature Works and the surrounding land, is out of town. His land use representative was supposed to be here tonight and had a family emergency, so she could not. But that hearing in front of city council for these changes is on December 8th. And so this was their opportunity to get before us. We'd already requested that they get a continuance once because this was supposed to be heard in October, I think. And it was kind of slid quietly through, and we didn't find out about it until the 30-day public notice. So the board members here will remember that we met with Adam about a month ago about this. And part of that was, because these changes are so big, the community deserves to know as a whole what's being proposed here. So I'll do my best to summarize it from what I know, but I certainly, can take no credit or blame for the full accuracy of these details, nor am I their representative to make their case for them. So what we'll do is we will also post this information so that people can have this. I'm just going to summarize it right now, but we really want to get the questions in front of them, because when you look at some of this online or through the documents that are publicly posted, there's a lot in here. And some of us that are used to looking at this stuff were even confused by it. And so some folks were confused by what's happening. Other folks weren't confused and were genuinely a little concerned with what was going on. So I think I sent you these, Josh. Do you have these? Okay. So what I'm going to show on the screen here first is the original zoning from the Heights master development. The original alcohol zoning. Sorry. So you'll see this red line surrounding this area shows the full area that's allowed to have alcohol sales in it. So this project and all 40-ish acres of it is what's called a PDA, a planned development alternative. And how that gets permitted through the city is in something this large. They propose a big master plan for it, but they have leeway to be able to move around uses. So maybe initially it shows a hotel here, but they can move it there without the city denying it, because it's all a part of the total quantity of hotel area, the total quantity of office space, the total quantity of residential units that are allowed to put throughout here, with more specific stipulations. So that's the gist of it. So, and then this blue dotted line area is the allowed area for outdoor alcohol sales. So one thing that they're changing on here can be found on this map, which is part of the current zoning reform. So what's in yellow are the added areas. They're adding in those areas in terms of expanding the boundary to be allowed to sell and serve alcohol within that. Yeah, if people are familiar with this kind of area, this is Palm. This is a space that's being built out right now on the side of the Pearl. This is part of the Eulalie lawn leading to Waterworks Park. And this is the site of the future Moxie Hotel, which is the first kind of project that they're going to do outside of their traditional boundary, which stopped at Tampa Street. They went through a rezoning earlier this summer and got the Moxie Hotel site rezoned. So now they want to add it into all of this. This, as well as a reconfiguration of the outdoor alcohol sales area to bring it back because their street alignment changed since 2018. All that's built out right now. So that's generally spatially the changes that they're making. I do want to add also that one thing that they're asking for is to vacate this road. And so what a vacating is basically the city gives it up to a private landowner. So this is called Market Street. It's barricaded off most of the time, but it does have public parking on it. And I think the city's just looked the other way and let them use it for their own private space. And now they want to actually take ownership of that. So that's one portion of their request. Then the other, to get into the nitty-gritty details, I know it's very difficult for everyone to see here, but what this is, and we'll make sure we post it somewhere and send a link to it, is a table containing the allowed different square footages of alcohol sales and consumption area. Can't see it, but this is the original column. And at the bottom of there, what they were originally allowed when they planned the whole development was for 119,000 square feet of wet zoned area for alcohol sales and consumption. The latest change they want to make increases, and that's again 119,000 spread across hotel rooms, restaurants, bars, that whole original space. With this change, they want to increase that to 266,000. So it goes from 119,000 to 266,000 total area of places that you can buy and consume alcohol. So they're not changing the overall quantity of apartments they're allowed to build, overall quantity of retail space allowed to build, but they're basically doubling the amount of that space that they're going to serve and consume alcohol in. And so, and then it adds in the hotel, but that's based on room count and not square footage size. So just real briefly, those changes are doubling the amount of restaurant area, bar lounge stays the same, and then adding in a place of assembly with that classification, adding in a 60,000 square foot recreational facility, a 25,000 square foot grocery store, which is Sprouts, which is already there. So this is where this gets complicated. Some of these things have been built out already, and they've technically used that square footage from their 119, but now they're reclassifying it. So again, this is where this isn't my project, but the main thing is that they're doubling, more than doubling the amount of area where they can buy and sell and consume alcohol. Yes. They haven't built out 119 yet. I can't. I mean, well, so of that 119, 56,000 is Armature Works. So you can slice that off right there, right? And then we know in outside of Armature Works, so Eulalie's in this already. So Eulalie's a couple thousand square feet. Stones Throw's in there already. The Pearl's in there already. So everything at the bottom, the Pearl, the Irish pub, the taco place, Roca. So yeah, I mean, if you just off the cuff, what's under the Pearl is probably another 10,000 square feet. So yeah, so the Sprouts is about 25,000 square feet. So yeah, if you, I mean, it's probably pretty close to built out. If you 56 and 25 and, you know, another 10, I mean, no, that's still not clear on the hotel, because they would the hotel classified as rooms, because you have to be allowed to drink in the room, which I get, but then there's also the bar space. I don't know how that square footage plays out there for the hotel. But that's not true. And what we're trying to figure out, what we're hoping for tonight, is to just get clear answers of this, because, you know, I think most of us that live around there can say, hey, you know, this has been a great asset to the community. It brings people into the neighborhood. You know, there's places to eat and drink there. For the most part, there's Matt and I live very close by, and I can say from regular operations, there's not that much disruption. So if, you know, and they've still got that much vacant land, of course they're going to need more to, you know, wet zoned area to put more restaurants in, right? But it's like, let's be clear about what this is and what's getting allowed here. So one thing that they've clarified, and again, I'm not going to say this is 100% true because I haven't written this document, but is that north of Palm, there's no bars allowed. So, but a bar is because there's an Irish pub, but that's classified as a restaurant because you have to do over 50% of your sales from food as opposed to drink. So as long as it's a restaurant, it's allowed to be north of Palm, closer to the single family portion of the neighborhood. But south of Palm would be all restricting all bars. Yeah, so this is the next big issue I want to cover. Right? So that's alcohol. You know, again, some people have different viewpoints on that or not. I mean, I think that's all worth discussion and debate, that I think we're on the short side of having, because we don't have anybody on the other side of the table to clarify or respond to that. But the noise thing is, I think, equally, if not more concerning to some of the neighbors that live nearby, for in Tampa Heights and in Ridgewood Park, which is on the other side of North Boulevard, pretty close. So right now, and I've had a lot of conversations with Adam Harden about this, the owner of Soho, that the city has a very weak noise ordinance. It's extremely vague. It basically is like, if it's disturbing anybody that's on private property, then that's a noise violation. And for people operating businesses, I mean, that's really tough criteria. You know, it's very objective. And frankly, from what I've heard and seen, it's like the police don't really have much that they can enforce on. It's got to be pretty egregious for them to kind of come shut something down. So in a good way, in my perspective, what they're trying to do is define their noise in here for the first time. But we want to make sure that that kind of covers what we think is appropriate. So that's saying for bar and lounge, that there's no outdoor amplified sound permitted after midnight, which seems pretty reasonable. But again, it's like, all right, we talk about it. Maybe some people think 8 or think like 9 or 10 or 11 is more appropriate. But as of now, they've proposed allowed until midnight. outdoor amplified music. And then at Armature Works, it would be permitted until 2 a.m. They both have a decibel. So here's the other good part is they're actually finally defining it. And so it would be unreasonably excessive noise would mean basically 85 decibels between 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. And then it would be like 65 decibels after 3 a.m. So 85 is actually not that loud. Like your kind of standard home air conditioning compressor, if you go outside when it's running, that's probably going to be like 65. 85 is not really crazy to me. And so we were trying to work with them to make sure that that applied to everything. And then it really just kind of comes down to the hours. So that's what they've proposed so far. So the one other wrinkle in this though is, again, just from my personal perspective, living just a couple blocks away from it, the normal operations there are not particularly disruptive. What's disruptive are the special events. So I don't know if anybody was aware of the Halloween dance music festival that they did. It was a daytime family friendly carnival. Great. But at night they brought it and made it adults only and brought in DJs. They've done that at least the last 2 years. And every year that event in particular has been excessively noisy. I've talked to neighbors in all the surrounding block areas. They had plates dancing on their shelves. They had to put their kids in back rooms to be able to go to sleep. It was really bad, and it is bad every year. And then every now and then there's a couple other events like that, but those aren't governed under this at all because they're special events and they're permitted separately by the city. Armature Works makes money by renting their dirt lots to them, but other than that, they go, that's their problem. We'll take your money, you use our land. It's permitted separately through the city, who has no real enforceable noise ordinance. So where I kind of stand on this, and the boards discuss it, is I'd like to see special event limitations wrapped up into this, because those are the primary disruptors. And again, it's only a couple times a year, but it's pretty bad when they're a couple times a year. And this isn't necessarily a concert facility. It's a parking lot that they've turned into a concert facility, and they kind of wash their hands of it. Yep. So that's what I know as of now. Yeah, vacating Market Street. I mentioned that.
they put clubs over there, you're gonna have people congregate on that street, which will be an issue with people that they have social stuff too. So if it's vacated, they actually except for EMS is fire stuff, right?
Mhm.
Long as it's basically for that. So you do a public streets to a private control it, CRA is right.
Yeah. CRA public funds used to improve these streets, and then, yeah.
I don't know what citizens getting by private spaces and go to that street. They'll get access to it. The boss will start connecting bigger, but I don't understand. I don't know how they can say it's a benefit to the public. I'm not looking for this off. And with these parking spaces, which as we keep growing, the meetings here get rougher and rougher about parking. We're gonna give up 30 parking spaces basically to them. And I think that they're great. I think they're a good neighbor, but I don't know what the advantage is for that. They just want it. It's in that, it's in there. And Brian, I need clarity on this. So if there's one element of this that the public does not like and speaks upon, does that close down the whole thing? Or is that something that shows up in hearing number one and they can take it out between hearing?
The vacating is a totally separate hearing. They filed that separately. What's filed now is just the alcohol and noise. It's really just the alcohol. The noise is set within the alcohol zoning. So
Wherever it goes, and this is blanket, but is there a mechanism in policy to allow you more specific to these streets or these routes?
yeah, they could totally be very specific on where they place those things. But you know what we've asked for, and what I've asked for repeatedly, and I got a little glimpse of it the last time I met with Adam 2 weeks ago, is where's their master plan? In 2018, we saw a master plan that was this whole area color coded. Here's where we plan to put retail, apartments, high rise, a condo, a hotel, yada yada. They have now been pretty closed off to that. And you know what the neighborhood expected, and what we thought would be good uses for the neighborhood and stuff, they've changed without the neighborhood really knowing, because they don't have to be held to specificity. So yep. And but they like it that way. They like to be sort of the king of their own kingdom and have that full control. So this allows them to place those things wherever they want without specifically saying, all right, Pearl phase 2 is going here, and we're gonna, include these spaces within it. It allows them to change some of that up. So, I mean, I think I'm only repeating questions versus giving answers, but at this point, so Josh, did anybody online? No. December 8th, it goes to city council. And unless we can get them to answer more questions specifically and make any changes that citizens are concerned about, then, that's city council will pass it the way it is. So we've been trying to work, and again, maybe it only ends up being minor tweaks on here, but there's not been a real good flow of dialogue and sort of a good community engagement, which is what tonight was supposed to be, about this. And we've been hearing a lot in the background from neighbors that are concerned about this, but we're trying to play middleman and get that feedback to them, and then figure out what changes they need to make. So we're trying to bring some leadership on this and filter some of that But there's some people that are saying, you know, again, all of this benefits a private landowner a lot, but in their CRA agreement, they've made, you know, certain stipulations to spend X dollars on public art, which hasn't been done. So there's some things in their development agreement that they have not fulfilled yet. You know, and a lot of people would like to see those fulfilled prior to more enhancements being allowed for them. That's a whole nother thing. That's not in this. All right. Hopefully that's at least a good primer on what's going on here. We'll try to send out more via email to the community. But we'll push, I think, for some of those aforementioned things. Are there any other specific concerns that we need to bring to them? Okay. If you think of any, and again, as we send out this information, you get a chance to look at it in summary form. If there's something you're concerned about, let us know. The next big project in the neighborhood, Robles Park Village, at our board meeting on Monday, representatives from the housing authority and their master developer came and met with us. So if you'll recall, Robles Park Village is one of the last unredeveloped public housing complexes in the city of Tampa. And we've been waiting a long time for that to be torn down and rebuilt into something that really reinvigorates it for the neighborhood. They met with us last year, finished their master plan for it. The neighborhood had some concerns about it, about the layout of it, some of the uses. And so we sent several times some specific feedback to them, which was well received. So if I can bring that up let me see where I've got that. So just speaking for myself, at that meeting Monday, I was pretty pleased with some of the changes that they've made, and some of the things they clarified that just weren't very clear in their master plan. But what you see here is the new plan for it. I know it's a little blurry, but essentially here you've got Zion Cemetery, which they've always been planning to memorialize, which is great. Certainly much needed recognition for the community and that history there. A grocery store and other retail here. Oh, sure. Sorry. Lake Avenue here. Florida Avenue north to south here. This is Sacred Heart School. Then if we go down just a little bit, got Robles Park down here. And so Avon, and then remind me, what's the cross street on the Emily? Okay. Emily across the north there. So it stretches all the way down from Robles Park on these properties. What they had here previously was a lot of surface parking, which we really didn't want to see, and a pretty messy roadway on Avon, really, with kind of splitting it off into two and bringing it back together. There's still a dog leg. We asked for more street alignment here, but they did. Again, there was like 3 different streets between carrying Jefferson up and a whole lot of dog leg turns that really just didn't make a whole lot of sense for pedestrian and traffic flow, having that much interaction on Lake, because the neighborhood goal is to really try to turn this section of Lake in the middle into a nice small downtownish area for this section of the neighborhood, because Lake continues through under the interstate to VME Bore and again then connects over. So it can really pull and be a nice central commercial district. So we're really pushing to get that sort of Main Street feel on these 2 blocks here. between Central and Jefferson and get good sort of sidewalk cafe placement there, retail establishments, local businesses. So they made some revisions to enhance that a little bit more, which was helpful. These here are going to be townhomes. One thing that we've stressed to them is that we want to see as much affordable for sale product as possible, not just affordable rentals. You know, that's a good, it's needed for the market, but really giving people home ownership opportunities is a great step up, as well as to keeping people in the neighborhood. And as we know, building generational wealth is just, you know, one of those things that you have to give people an opportunity to get their foot in the door with that. So we really want to see that happen on here, and being a diverse and inclusive place where people can again, you know, find their opportunities to live here permanently through home ownership. So that was pretty well received. So we feel encouraged about that. And then we did get clarity on the denser parts here. These are going to be probably, what did he say, 5 or 6 story apartment buildings. We wanted to make sure that they weren't solely low income, but they are going to be mixed market rate and low income, which again is a good practice, because we found that concentrating only low income in the same property just has negative effects and isn't best practice for low income housing anymore. And that's part of the problem about what has been done in all of these housing authority properties that they've had over the last few decades, is really concentrating and not integrating, you know, low income households into the rest of the neighborhood and making them feel a part of the neighborhood as opposed to isolating them. So yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything to add, but that's the update we got. There was even a few things we brought up that we talked about a year ago, but brought up again, such as trying to acquire this property. It's off screen, but Emily, a lot doesn't align as it crosses Florida Avenue. There's a lot of dog legs and unsafe crossings. And so we've really harped on how can we get Emily to align. Sorry. It's off screen. But yeah, Emily doesn't, Lake doesn't. Sorry, we were focusing on how Lake can align, but because of the bus stops. Bus stop being here and a bus stop on Florida, a lot of people have to use that. It's just unsafe for cars to cross, unsafe for people to cross. So there may be some hope to acquire this holdout property and do some realignment of the street. We hope that's our next big thing we think we want to tackle. All right. Anybody else on the board have anything to add? The bus project? Yeah, the Heights Mobility Project is going to dedicate one lane on Ford Avenue and then one lane on Tampa Street going south to dedicated bus service. And so that's happening. That's funded by FDOT and the federal government. And so again, you know, this is going to be a nice transit hub kind of area. So, yeah, but people can't go south on here. They're going to have to cross over to Tampa Street to go south. And so we've got to have a safe pedestrian crossing experience there. So yeah, I really think acquiring this property somehow and correcting that road alignment is going to be pretty key to the success of this whole thing. Yeah, because really, again, if we're saying, hey, let's make this a node of the neighborhood of the northern part of Tampa Heights, but if you live on this side of Florida, you can't get to it. You know, it doesn't make sense because the lake goes up here, and so you've got to go and come down, and then this isn't none of these are aligned to these crossings. You'd have to go up to MLK to get an aligned crossing, or down to Flora, Nebraska, I think. So here, or Emily there, right? Well, they've got the roundabout there that they're putting. We were asking for either a full way stop, so it would be a 3-way stop there, or a signal. here. I mean, something they sound unwilling to reconfigure the building layouts though, in order to make these align for people going north on Avon. So. Yes. Correct. Which sounds like they will commit to getting that to happen, but again, there's no sidewalk on the south side of the lake here by Sacred Heart's property. And as they get into demolition, this sidewalk's gonna be all shut down. Again, you got everybody from this side of the neighborhood needs to take the bus. And there's gonna be no safe sidewalks there as soon as construction starts. Any other updates on that we went over? Yeah. But I can say from my perspective, I think it was a positive interaction, a positive update from them. Well, I think unless there's any further questions on that, that takes me through all the things I had to cover. Kareem, did you have any CRA updates to give? All right, let me give you this.
At a CRA meeting Tuesday, and a couple of things that we talked about as the Tampa Heights board that was very pressing for us to make sure that we be vigilant about the excess dollars that we have inside of the current CRA. So the CRA, because of COVID, has not utilized a lot of the funds that are in there. And one of the things that we're being vigilant about is to make sure that we don't lose the funds and they start going somewhere else. So we just had a discussion about 30%. The statute states that 30% of the CRA's budget is to go to affordable and affordable housing. And what we did pass was for us to actually move, it's about $125,000 to $150,000 into its own separate account. So it does not just so it's in its own separate account, and we'll have 3 years to come up with some type of programming that is specific to the Tampa Heights Riverfront CRA before we'll see that those funds get transferred. Also, there is $70,000 that is going towards this this art project, which is the historic Soul Trail that the city's art department is working on. And what this Soul Trail will do is identify African-American and minority landmarks within the core of Tampa that goes through our CRA and into other CRAs. And we've set aside $70,000 to go towards that. There's also a roundabout. There's that roundabout at Palm Avenue and Highland. I believe that's Highland, where we're really doing some research to find some type of historical context to put into that roundabout, and at the same time make it very appealing to people who are driving through the area. So we've interviewed some families who stayed in the Tampa Heights area long before it looks like how it looks now, and they give us some real important context. That was what's Myron Jackson, and along with his brother came in and presented, did a wonderful job. And they also pointed us towards the history department. And so what we wanted to do is conceptually drive the ship on making that, whatever it may be, whatever the artwork may be, that has some type of context about the history of the area in Tampa Heights. And last but not least, the Tampa Heights Civic Association has been working for a long time, even before I came on the Civic Association, to possibly extend the boundaries of the CRA, because the CRA is about being able to improve blighted areas. And we've pretty much accomplish that by using these TIF dollars, these tax dollars to do that with what you see at Armature Works. So right now, as we start looking at all of these different programs and having this excess amount of budget funds, we as a CRA wanted to go back in working along with the city employees to really be specific about what our plan is about how we want to spend the funds. And it's not official, but we made it a point, Brian, that we talk about that if we don't have enough projects right now in order to improve the area, if we started extending the CRA north, let's say heading north up the Florida Avenue corridor, which takes care of a lot of commercial because that's also in the statutes. And then also the neighborhoods therein on the north side. And then also, as we start talking about Franklin Street, we can definitely have enough projects that we can fund with these excess dollars. So it's really, really important. And we're being very strategic about making sure that as we come up with this plan on how we spend money, that we want to think in the future about the parameters possibly being changed. Now, you got to understand a CRA like, let's say, Channelside really has this same issue that we don't want to run into, where Channelside is no longer the slum and blight as it was before. So there's a lot of, people looking over the Channelside CRA shoulder to see what they're going to do with the money. If they're not going to use it, then we'll use it for you, right? And we don't want that to happen with our CRA. So I think the answer for us is extending our boundaries north. And that's really, really important. And the last thing I'll say about that is right now, our CRA is going to be one of the longer running CRAs. I think it's till 2043. So even if it's a longer process to get the actual the changes involved, and there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. Of course, we also have new county commissioners, so there's a lot of stakeholders involved. But 2043 is long enough away for us to at least start chipping away at this process. So that's where we are. That's the update. As soon as we had our meeting, we had our CRA meeting the day after. So we're moving, and hopefully we continue to move in that right direction of extending the boundaries of the CRA and getting these dollars to be activated moving forward.
Why does the CRA choose to move it east towards like Mobley Park and north, like to encompass like
I got to look at
this section and north.
I got to look at the actual maps because there's a lot of we have a lot of CRA neighbors. We have an East Tampa CRA. We have the Ybor City Channelside, and I don't know where those boundaries are
Okay.
to say why we won't go that direction.
Right. So like on the affordable housing side, Mobley is like an amazing place to start some of that stuff.
Mhm.
Right.
Right. Yes. You're correct, but I'm not sure where the boundaries are.
I'm just asking what the rationale was, like I'm pushing north versus east. I don't care where we go. I'm just wondering what that, but
We definitely need them to get up to that market. And as we look at all of these different plans that we're looking at, the overlay district, the heart plan, the housing authority plan, we have to go back to our neighborhood plan, like you've been working on, Brian and Matt. We have to go back. It's 20 some years since we did our neighborhood plan. Now we got to go back and let it all become a master plan. And we plugging all of these things that are happening in our neighborhood so that at a bird's eye, we could see what's happening and we could have them coordinated together. I believe that's more important than anything right now, that we get all of those pieces connected and get a look at our neighborhood as a whole and get all these different pieces from being separate.
And I wanted to comment, my answer to your question is, I don't know if we'd be overlapping another CRA to say how far we'll be going over to the
if you could bring up the neighborhood plan like Lena said, because even though, I mean, we've talked about how outdated it is, how it needs a refresh, because some things are accomplished, some aren't. One of the things that aren't accomplished are those commercial corridors.
Right.
So it's already in that plan from 20 years ago. And if you could say, look, 20 years ago, this wasn't done, it still isn't done, there's clearly a need for another mechanism like a CRA to be able to invest in that corridor.
And that is also the entire copy, soft copies on our website, right, that I can forward. So I'll forward that to the CRA manager as he starts to develop. Yeah, I'll keep on reminding him. I've been making sure that, that we keep this alive because, you know, even with previous managers, you know, you'd hear that, oh man, you got to jump over so many hurdles to get that done. Don't even think about it. And it solves two things. It allows for us to get those dollars that we have sitting there to the places that need it the most, and it helps the entire community.
I don't even think our current plan even acknowledges the CRA or Armature in it. Because there was
It
written,
does.
does it? Is it in there? Okay.
But we were underutilizing our river space.
Anybody have any questions?
So our upcoming fundraiser is on December 16th. It's gonna be a fundraiser gala. And we want to thank the Civic Association for at board meeting on Monday voting to be $1,000 sponsor for the gala, which is awesome. We're going to be able to do more children's programs and implement some of the other plans that we have for next year. You know that we already got our license for our new building, North Tampa Heights at 3717 Central Avenue, North Central Avenue. We are desperate for workers for the early learning center. We are desperate. Right now, my days are spent in the mornings until 4 in the afternoon filling in up there because we don't have people coming in. We had somebody who came in today. Our spirits were so high, and then she came in and she said, nah, this is not what she wants. So my appeal to everybody in our community is if you take a background check and take 2 10-hour classes online, you could come into our center and volunteer your time to help us at the center. We have children that are lining up now. The ratio is 4 children to 1 adult. And right now, we only could take 4 children, although we have others waiting because we don't have adults who are there to help with the children. So if you're looking for employment for $14 an hour, come to us and fill out the application and so on. But if you just want to volunteer, these are awesome little children. And you could influence them to become even better than they are because we've gone down to serving the children at a younger age because studies have shown that the earlier we get involved with children's lives, the more successful they will be as they become adults. In fact, President Biden referred to that just last week. It's a fact, and our children need the extra help. So if you just want to volunteer and help us to achieve that goal, please reach out to me. Go on our Civic Association site, reach out to Brian, reach out to any board member, and we will welcome your coming in and helping with the children.
That I want to give an update. We also have leaf balls that we're looking to finance for the ecosystem along the Hillsborough River, especially with a lot of the runoff that is going to be happening with the new roads and everything that happens there. So that's another project, along with the Waterworks Park crossing plan. That's actually augmenting and becoming a bigger thing, along with the sidewalk crossing and lighting all along Doyle Carlton. Thank you. And also the wayfinding signage update that's moving forward also. These were all of the things that came from our civic association that we planted into the CRA. And even though we just have a small slither of the northern part of the CRA, those things that, you know, we still feel that helps the entirety of our community to improve, we're implementing and moving forward with those also. So I wanted to just give those last.
Thanks, Kareem. And thank you, Lena. All right, just to close out the night, just a couple of planning and zoning updates. On Monday, the board considered a few rezonings. One's at 2304 North Highland Avenue. That's where Highland, just north of Park. If you know where the Highland, the Gardner Highland Park is, that's sort of in a small roundabout. There's a property on the corner that's proposed to rezone to a single family house and 3 townhomes set on the alley. That's not compliant with current city code, and it's not compliant with our proposed overlay. So we have voted to oppose that. That's something also that the applicant has avoided meeting with us on, despite multiple invitations to do so. Similar to 210 East Columbus, that's at Columbus and Morgan. This was a special use. That's a commercially zoned property. They want to put some residential on there, but they have entirely refused to acknowledge the civic association, meet with the civic association. Here are concerns about the project. Nothing, unresponsive. So we voted to oppose it. And so those are coming up also at the December 8th city council hearing. And if you want to learn more about those, on our website, we've embedded it, but the city has, this is always a good tool I bring up whenever we talk about it. The city has a map for planning and zoning notices now, and we've embedded it on our website. So if you go to the website, you'll see this map. All of these colored dots are a different type of application in the city, whether it's design exception, rezoning, a wet zoning, a variance, anything like that. So you can find out what's actively being applied for. You click on the link, it gives you a case number, and you go to the city's website for permitting called Excella, and you put in that case number. It'll take you to that exact file. So that's just how to find that. If you're concerned, if you think something's going on because a property just sold near you, if you want to go to this map on our website, and you can figure out what may be going on that property. So, because the city only requires applicants to mail something to you 30 days before their city council hearing. So they might be working on this for a year, 6 months in advance. But if they don't want to engage with their next door neighbor or the public about it, they won't do it until they're legally required at 30 days out. And at 30 days out, there's very little chance you could change anything about it. So this is a great way to keep up with change that's going on. Other than that, that takes us through our agenda for the night. I'll just open it up to any other questions or new business. All right, hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody.